Again, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are. My name is Phaedra Martin. I am Industry Marketing Director with Digital at GE Vernova. And we are excited to present to you a jam-packed agenda focused on the overlaying theme of how consumer packaged goods and food and beverage companies are leveraging technology to drive productivity and efficiency gains. We have a jam-packed agenda with 3 amazing presenters, and I will introduce them all now. Because as we jump in, there won't be time. There's a lot of great content that we're going to be sharing with you today that we hope will enable you to transform how your manufacturing is going. So first, to kick things off, we have Colin Henry, who is a Senior Product Manager of Prophecy Smart Factory Cloud. He is a highly regarded expert in advanced manufacturing techniques, manufacturing execution systems, and bringing informational technology to the production floor. Most recently, prior to coming to Digital at GE Vernova, Colin worked for Kelsey Hayes, where he started the work of modernizing the plant systems in all locations to evolve into what is known today as industrial IoT years before systems were the standard for manufacturing. Currently, he helps lead product direction and support manufacturing companies who seek continuous improvement, digital transformation, and modernization globally. Welcome, Colin. Mary McDonald is an Amazon Web Services Principal Business Development Manager and Global Subject Matter Expert on the AWS Automotive, Manufacturing, and Supply Chain team. This is a substitution from who you may have seen in the advertisements of Doug Bellin. She is coming to us to step in, and she will be amazing. So we're excited to have her. She holds certifications in Cloud Practitioner, Learn from Amazon Supply Chain Fulfillment Centers, and Culture of Innovation. Mary's career extends over 25 years in the industrial manufacturing automation and software market in several vertical segments. Located in the U.S. Midwest, Mary is a career professional in leading teams in global technical sales professional services, OEM end user system integration, partners and channel, vertical segments, global strategic accounts, competitive displacement, and providing consultation to executive boards and teams for optimizing IoT business strategies and models. She has held leadership roles and innovation at Rockwell Automation, Panduit, Emerson Process, Schneider Electric, and OSI Soft, Aviva Schneider Electric. Welcome, Mary. And finally, last but not least, we have Scott Spencer, who has over 25 years of experience in the food, beverage, and nutraceutical industry. His early career in technical engineering projects seamlessly transferred to implementation of multiple continuous improvement models, and finally into executive leadership. At General Mills, Scott led the deployment of millions of dollars of capital improvements, driving productivity, reliability, and efficiency in cereal manufacturing. At Snyder's-Lance, Scott leveraged both engineering and TPM-based continuous improvement programs to transform the snack manufacturer supply chain. While the VP of Engineering and Strategic Initiatives at the Nature's Bounty Company, one of the largest nutraceutical manufacturers in the U.S., Scott drove the strategic optimization of the supply chain through plant consolidation, capital deployment, and the launch of company-wide performance work system. In his most recent role as the president and CEO of Island Abbey Foods, the makers of honey-based Honeybee brand, Scott drove improvements across the company, including performance management systems, multiple capacity expansions, and commercial growth. And today he is supporting us from FSO Institute as a coach. So thank you and welcome, Scott. Now, I think we will transition into really quick some housekeeping rules. If you look at the navigation bar on your screen, you should see a couple buttons that will help you interface. Button 1, you'll see as enter questions, and we'll answer them at the end. 2, we have contact our team. 3, access additional resources, which would be additional white papers, blogs, things like that as you're listening in. We have lots of great content to help support your learning. 4, connect with your product manager. 5, technical assistance. And 6, take our survey. So please leverage these buttons as you need. And again, if there's any technical assistance, feel free to reach out with the question mark. However, most issues can be solved by refreshing your browser. And so with that, I would love to turn things over to Colin, who will kick things off for us.
Thank you, Phaedra. Appreciate your introduction. What I'm going to talk about today are these cloud-based technologies and how we can use these technologies. What's the state of the industry today? What are our current challenges? And where do I see the industry going? So the first thing I really want to dig into is the current challenges I see in food and beverage and CPG is we got a lot of fragmented data out there in companies, a lot of untapped data. A lot of the industries, the production lines are not fully automated. We don't have a lot of PLCs. We're not capturing data across the board. Even when we do, they sometimes end up in siloed systems. They're not effectively communicating with each other across the plant or even the company. We might even have a lot of outdated information. Regulations are changing dramatically in CPG and food and beverage. And we may not even be capturing all the data that we need to, or we're capturing some of the wrong things we need. And of course, there's been a lot of labor disruption over the last couple of years. All this has led into what you see on the screen, these industry and technology trends. The first thing, IoT and IoT, these are platforms. Plants don't run on platforms. You need some type of application or business application to utilize the IoT structure to make use of that. Software is so important for digital transformation. That's what it's all about, is going through, modeling a digital twin or going through a digital transformation is all about installing software and using the systems to enable that transformation. And of course, the reason for doing this is, of course, Lean, Six Sigma, taking this information and putting it into continuous improvement loops and doing your Gemba walks in the shop floors. All of that information, as long as it's contextualized, so we can tell what works with what, can be used in artificial intelligence or predictive analytics. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And of course, why the cloud? Why would we put this on the cloud? And again, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute. And all this goes into what we call augmented or mixed reality. And all that is a new marketing term for what I call a digital twin, being able to visualize your current plant environment in a digital environment, so that I can make changes, learn from what's going on in the shop floor, and make use of all of that data. Let's move on. Okay, what we provide today at GE is a state-of-the-art manufacturing execution system. Now, there's a lot of them out there, and I'm going to cover some of the things you need to look for. But what we provide are things like efficiency management. Most of them out there will. We provide OEE tracking, allows you to do full, root cause analysis with the efficiency calculations. Now, this is only one component of the MES, but it's a very important component to understand what's happening in the shop floor. How do I make improvements? The next thing we do is to give you full production management tracking. We understand all facets of production, from raw materials all the way to finished goods, from pieces all the way to the finished assemblies. We track all of that environment through the production management and component of the MES. Of course, while you're running production management, you want to track quality, so that I'm making things right the first time. I want to track all my alarms. I want to track as the process goes, so I know what is happening on the shop floor. And of course, there's also batch analysis, understanding my batches. If I run a batch type environment, what are the metrics around batch management? Now, that's just MES. Everybody these days needs an MES. This adds context to all that data that you're capturing on the shop floor. Not just information from your PLCs and from your machinery, but this puts it into context so you understand what's related to what and what is working with what. Let's go on to the next one. So why would I do this in the cloud? A lot of people have been doing this on premise for years, and they're starting to enter into a new world where they're putting this up in the cloud. So these are some of the top real big reasons why you'd actually go to the cloud. One, it's cost reduction, performance improvements, and I'll cover that in just a minute. When people see the prices of SaaS, they automatically think, you know what, that's a lot more money than my traditional on-prem environment. But you got to look below the surface, just a little bit below the surface, and you realize that actually a SaaS deployment is far cheaper than your on-premise environment. We also provide increased security. We worry about security, and I'll cover this one also. Faster time to value. We can have this system up and running in a matter of days, potentially a matter of weeks, whereas the old systems could take up to a matter of months or potentially years. Another thing that's really important to remember is cloud-based analytics. To analyze all of this data, you need some serious horsepower in your CPUs and you need serious memory. But the superscalers out there like Amazon and Azure, they provide all the scalability that you need. So you can tap into all that power when you need it and then back off and scale back all that power when you don't need it. With a typical on-prem environment, you can scale up, but there's no way to scale down. So you've got a lot of money wasted in hardware that's just sitting there that you don't actually need. And of course, that goes into some of your cost reductions. We're always current with the environment. We provide a zero downtime upgrades. Now, this is really important to take a look at this particular one, because how much time do you currently spend upgrading your current ERP or your current MES or your current whatever enterprise application you currently have installed? It can take months. The upgrades can be very difficult and very time consuming. All of that goes into the cost of maintaining an on-prem environment. With a SaaS environment, you don't have to do any of that work. We eliminate all the need for all of that work. And of course, these systems are inherently highly available and highly scalable. They're always up and always available. Let's talk about a couple of big reasons to move to the cloud. Of course, your CapEx expenditures are much more difficult than your OpEx expenditures when it comes to financing. We have low resource overhead. What I'm talking about here is I don't need to tap into your IT department. I don't need to use a lot of internal resources to IT in order to get this stuff up and running. This is what's provided with the SaaS world. It allows you either to redeploy those resources or take those resources and put them into something that adds a lot more value to your organization. Okay, we have eliminated planned downtime for upgrades. There's no more of this. We will upgrade the system behind the scenes. We don't have to take it down to do an upgrade. More traditional world, you'd have to go through all that testing, make sure that you can deploy all your configuration changes to the new version, and then bring up the new version in the environment. And hopefully you don't run into many problems. All of that costs a lot of costs and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of downtime. Of course, we'll keep you up to date with your latest features and newest releases. That's just scratching the surface. Now, if you take a look at the increased security, we provide increased security at scale. We do full pen testing. We make sure we've added all the security patches. We have no vulnerabilities in our operating systems or any of our applications. Now, if you take a hard look sometimes at your own organization, you may find some old applications and some vulnerabilities that you may have within the organization that you must keep there because of some of your older applications, some of your old environments, and you're not doing effective pen testing continuously. We do. We have to provide that level of security for all of our customers. And because of that, we have a much higher secure environment than most people have on premise. And we do full up-to-date security with full-time monitoring. Ask yourself again, do I monitor my systems full-time, 7x24 by 365? We do. We have to. So these are only two of the reasons that it's a good idea to move to more of a cloud environment. It is definitely lower cost, and you've got to take a look at your total cost of ownership, not only for non-prem, but for SaaS, and we have increased security. What would one security incident cost you? Let's talk about the digital transformation journey itself. So the first thing you got to do is get a solid industrial management strategy put in place. We have to capture the data from your current piece of equipment. We do take data manually, but where we can get it automatic way is a much better, much more timely information from your machinery and your equipment. Provide plant-wide connectivity so I can get those information from the different parts of your plant. I can pull that information in. I can manage my specs, my genealogy, my MES, so I can textualize all of that data across the organization. So I know when I put in an order, I know if I'm looking for quality improvements, I know what SKUs it may be related to, what shift it might be related to, write down the individual people who may need more training, or I have got some inefficiencies in equipment, or whatever it might be. With that context, we can actually show you where those holes are and where you need your improvement. And of course, apply analytics and machine learning to get more of a forward-looking to your shop floor. What might happen in the future? Am I seeing degradations in quality? Am I beginning to see some failures in the equipment? Am I beginning to get some foresight in what's happening out there? Once I have this up and running, I can easily see a 20% improvement in my OEE. I've got stabilized lines. I've got improved processes. I now have the ability to take real-time information and make decisions with that real-time information. I've got ability to react to the disruption or the problem on the shop floor when I can make a real difference in the shop floor. Let's go on to the next one. What to look for in an MES. I bring this up because a lot of people kind of group them all together, and it's important for you to really take a look at what MESs are. Not all MES or manufacturing systems are the same. Obviously everybody focuses on how much out-of-the-box functionality do they have. Everybody asks that question. The next question you really do need to ask, is this a toolkit? Am I building my new legacy system today? These toolkit systems are great, and they work great for a lot of people, but they also require a lot of configuration, what I would even call customization, to make them work right. And then more importantly, in a cloud environment, understand what it is. What is cloud? Why does it matter? You're looking for an application that is cloud native, not just another application that's being hosted on the cloud that isn't cloud native, because you're not going to get the benefits you want. A cloud native application that gives you the ability to do no downtime upgrades, gives you the ability to put in a lot of configuration without it affecting the core of the application, and will allow you to continue to upgrade. What kind of hybrid cloud capabilities do you need? Do you need some things that run on premise and some things that run in the cloud? All of these factors go into what I call adoption, and adoption is absolutely key in these environments to get people to use it. And that is one of the reasons to buy a cloud environment. Instead of just buying a traditional on-prem where you buy all the licenses up front, with cloud you pay as you go. So you're only paying for the plants and lines that you're currently using. Lastly, it's all about risk. How do I manage my risk, my deployment, compliance, change management? In the cloud, we reduce risks across the board. We take on the risk of the licenses. We take on the risk of compliance. We take on the risk of keeping these machines up and running. And it all flows into enterprise data management, some type of delivery methodology, a hybrid architecture you might need, a ready-to-use analytics. We provide all of this, reducing your risk of implementation and allowing you to run these systems in your plants. With that, I'm going to wrap up my presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to Mary McDonald.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the time, everyone, today. Again, my name is Mary McDonald. I'm a business development leader for AWS on the manufacturing and supply chain team. So first, let's talk a little bit on some statistics and some data, of course. So the amount of data generated annually has grown year over year since 2010. And in fact, it's estimated that 90% of the world's data was generated in just the last 2 years. So in the space of 13 years, this figure has increased almost 60-fold in that period of time, which has led us to more data is created every hour today than the entire year just 20 years ago. But interestingly enough, 68% of the available data goes unused because businesses can't really figure out sometimes where it is and then how to use it. So as Andy Jassy is very fond of saying, there is no compression algorithm for experience. So let's explore what some of this experience has taught us for planning business outcomes with a better data foundation. So initially, when we go down this path, there are deployment pitfalls. As manufacturing sites set about executing their vision of greater productivity through data usage, a lot of these pitfalls will follow. Each plant is asked to show their individual return on investment for, say, a given machine learning use case. And as a result, the plant manager might only fund certain solutions that ultimately only serve their local needs. So since these use cases are localized, they become limited to becoming repeatable technical assets that can actually scale. Therefore, then we get some unstructured data swamps, data silos, and a very murky path to financial benefit. The data is all there, but the overall digital transformation plan to full productivity is not. So let's dive a little deeper into kind of turning this around with a customer data example. So a large manufacturer set out to becoming a data-driven enterprise. They wanted to develop and execute analytics and machine learning use cases that were relevant to each plant, therefore helping their teams make some better decisions. So becoming more data-driven, they recognized the value in a future state that was no longer constrained by those data silos and had a central cloud-based data repository that provided cost-effective data management. So not servers for all my friends. So holistically, data-driven organizations treat data like an organizational asset. No one person actually owns it. It's a common asset for all departments and not the property of an individual department. They set up systems to collect, store, organize, and process valuable data and make it available in a secure way to the people who actually need it. So thus enter in Gen AI use cases for manufacturing, like faster knowledge transfer for new operations hires, interactive assistance for maintenance operations, supply chain issue resolution, so follow that digital thread, and then enhance digital twin capabilities for improved operations. So by becoming a data-driven operation, becoming one, we took a look at a lot of those common challenges that were in the pitfalls. So the integration of disparate data silos across an organization where you're trying to harness in, the historian data, the PLC data, the SCIP data, and which also comes at a high cost and effort to manage those OT systems and get more of those use cases out, thus getting ourselves into some pilot purgatory. Reports and dashboards are not getting people to where they need to go, and thus they band-aid by putting in many more manual processes, which doesn't help to fit. Then we move into what our data-driven aspiration can be with some of this now common cloud technology of a fully managed system. So now you avoid those integration costly challenges. You have a single secure data repository for operations and machine learning. Therefore, now we can do performance and scale. And then kind of a holy grail of making those workers so much more available and knowledgeable, because you can now accelerate through those automated workflows. So now that we have this repository, what is it that we think could possibly happen? So if you knew the state of everything in the world and could reason on top of that data, what problems would you solve? So let's take a look at this question from this lens. What would you need to believe that must be in place to be able to apply these powerful data platforms? So a main and core enabler would be to be able to track and trace, track and capture as much information as you can in order to understand that state of everything in your operations. Now, this isn't something that's really net new, but the telemetric advances and the cost-effective and elastic storage data, those options these days, are much more approachable in those cost constraints for anyone from a global business to anything that's in regional or small and medium. So now what do we hit? The absolute power of the modern data strategy. This is the being able to reason on top of the data that is realized. This modern data strategy gives you the best of both the data lakes and the purpose-built data living in those stores. So now you can have data at any scale. You can move and store any amount of data from those various silos. AWS has the best price performance for all of those applications and analytical needs. So you can get the broadest and deepest set of purpose-built and optimize for that best-in-class functionality. AWS has functionality for automatically discovers tags, catalogs, and keeps your data in sync across that data lake. So it gives you more of that experience of that unified governance. And then bringing back to that reason on top of the data. So we have AI and ML strategies to solve these business challenges. So whether you want to enhance your customer experience, and you can improve productivity and optimize those business processes, or speed up and scale at innovation speeds. These are all battle tested, have high availability, performance, scalability, and security that is built right in. With a core data foundation in place, a manufacturer can now accelerate a growth strategy and can stay ahead of their competition. In smart manufacturing, 30% of productivity increases can be captured by these digital-first machinery players. It's estimated that approximately every 3.7 years, there's a significant supply chain disruption. So to mitigate these, players improve their demand forecasts with a lot of machine learning to establish that end-to-end visibility. Again, follow that digital thread. In products and data-driven services, market indicators show a 14% CAGR until the year 2030 for that IoT in manufacturing. And then through shifts towards a connected supply chain, 80% of companies can now attempt to reduce their carbon footprint to meet some of these stricter CO2 regulations. So why AWS for industrial? Well, a lot of our collective experiences in successful customer outcomes all leverage years and years of Amazon's unmatched experience with factory automations with leading industrial companies like McDonald's and Heineken and 3M and Cargill and Koch Industries. All of these services may be purpose-built for optimizing industrial operations. And to boot, we live in a great worldwide network of partners such as GE, that bring a broad suite of solutions in industrial workloads that really help us through these next challenges. And in the evolution of that manufacturing data landscape, you know, we've been taught for years and years around that ISA 95 model, which is still very much in play today. But it really helped us to get around our thoughts of how this stack works. And today, and absolutely future is now. We are now converging that IT and OT stack where we're getting better descriptive protocols. That IT-OT border can now be gone, where we're getting definitely that much better edge and cloud hybrid model. So in 2021, an AWS manufacturing survey revealed the top business goals of a manufacturing customer, which was to improve product quality, enhance operational capabilities, enhance sustainability, speed up production environments, and achieve faster innovation. These responses led us to the 5 key pillars that we focus on for manufacturing solutions, such as smart manufacturing, supply chain management, smart products and services, engineering, design, and sustainability. We have built and delivered use cases in each of these areas, and I invite you to explore them. The objective here, though, is to align both the business and the technology teams. People don't buy technology unless it's actually going to have some business value at the end and be able to take action on those. So these are extended use cases that continue to add value for that industrial data platform. So kind of in conclusion, going back to that initial question, at AWS, we focus on those durable needs of enabling long-term operational benefits. And going back to that initial question of, if you knew the state of everything in the world and could reason on top of that data, what problems could you solve? So we could reduce the cost of IT infrastructure while empowering that factory productivity. We now can modernize those applications and data structure for better agility and lowering carbon footprint, and now improve our speed and scaling at a reduced risk because we have a more secure and highly adaptive architecture. AWS is where this magic happens, and with the best industrial partners. So, Scott, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mary, and hello, everybody. We're going to pivot just a little bit here and talk a little bit more about driving the organizational adoption of new technologies as opposed to the technical implementation. And we're also going to use generative AI as a use case for that. So we'll talk quickly about some of the traditional implementation challenges of key technologies that we've just talked about. We're going to talk about generative AI. I'm pretty confident that 2023 will be known as the year of the start of AI, so everybody's talking about it. We're going to talk about some of the unique challenges to other tech.
Hey, Scott, real quick, sorry about the interruption, but we can't hear you. So let's do a quick audio check. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it looks like
okay, now
my
we
thing
can hear
went
you.
Okay, sorry. When did you lose me?
Maybe one slide ago. Apologies for that.
No,
I wasn't sure if it was me or everyone, so we confirmed that it was everyone.
No, my camera went on mute here. Okay, great. So as I was saying,
you went mute again. Okay, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, hold on. Let me. I don't know how to switch my input real quick. Sorry. It's going on and off. Let me try this real quick. Oh, hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, let's try sticking with that then and see if it works. Sorry about that. Okay, traditional implementation challenges for the third time. Again, leadership buy-in is something we always need. Upskilling our employees to take advantage of the. Did you guys lose me again, Phaedra? Sorry.
No, you're good. Please continue.
Okay, all right. Change management, data integrity, some of the things that Colin talked about with implementation cost and ROI. So those are kind of your traditional challenges. We've been on this slide for 2 minutes, so we'll move on. So why are we talking about AI? We're talking about AI because 2023 is going to be known as the year of AI. I'm pretty confident on that. It's growing massively, has the opportunity for significant increases in productivity. And so some stats here, estimated to be worth about $20 billion in 2028. That's just in manufacturing. Recent study where consultants at BCG performed up to 25% faster by being assisted by AI. Half the workforce is expected to be impacted by AI and significant increases in productivity. Report I read 40% by 2035. I think that's pretty low. So that's why we're talking about AI. What are some of the things that are unique to AI? You've got the common implementation process, which is the same for both traditional and AI implementations. You're preparing, you roll out, that might be data integrity, et cetera, et cetera. You're doing the development of the software, of the system, then you implement, and then you're doing the future proofing and future maintenance. What's different when it comes to AI is some of the new types of risk, the governance and ethics required to manage those risks, and then again, the unique form of organizational impact. So let's talk about what are some of those risks. You've heard about these in the news. where something like ChatGPT will hallucinate, which is a nice way of saying it will make things up. So you've got to check your data integrity. It can create harmful content because it's generating, and based on its training, it might create harmful or negative content. There can be biases in the responses based on its training. So you may have heard examples where some companies, the AI software they were using was biased towards men, et cetera. Obviously, globally, there's the chances for things like misinformation, privacy concerns, loss of intellectual property, bad actors using cybersecurity, and then over-reliance. You might have heard of over-reliance just this week because ChatGPT just launched a new update and it crashed the system basically because everybody was on it. And Twitter was filled with all the people who couldn't get on ChatGPT and now couldn't do their jobs. So full dependency or over-reliance is another type of risk. So how do we address these risks? That's the key components of governance and ethics in AI. That's what we need to do. The goal should be to establish a framework of policies and regulations that ensure ethical, safe, compliant, transparent, and accountable performance of the AI systems. So when you're looking at what data am I using, this is a classic example of hiring. In one system, they used 10 years of hiring data. It was more biased towards men in technical fields. And so that's what the AI learned, was that more men should be selected for technical fields. Model selection and training. There's different types of models, of course. The training is key, whether that's done by an external firm or internally when you bring a platform onto your own system. Deployment and infrastructure needs to have security and everything else along with it to make sure we don't combat any of those risks. So there's a unique set of organizational challenges as well. So you're still going to have those traditional type of challenges, leadership buy-in, upskilling of our people, change management, ROI, et cetera. Those are common to both traditional implementations and to AI. However, there are a few unique generative AI challenges, and I think we're just discovering these at this time. The pace of innovation in AI tools is like nothing we've ever seen before. Again, you might have heard this week, ChatGPT just announced a major update to their package, and that included built in what they're calling GPTs, which is non-code applications that there was already a whole industry built around. So folks who were building these no-code applications, platforms and services just got kind of kneecapped by ChatGPT. So there's an incredible pace of innovation for both tool selection as well as the impact of that on our teams, right? As we roll out new tools, we might just be getting used to one thing, and now all of a sudden there's a new AI tool available. The cultural shift to AI integration into workflows. And what I mean by this is just like when you might have launched a new ERP or other major software package, something like that needs to be integrated into people's daily workflows. AI is so ubiquitous that sometimes it's hard to figure out exactly where to implement it and how people are going to accept using that assistance. And then unique to AI is the white collar job impact of an implementation. So a lot of things that are going to be automated are not production floor jobs, but instead those office worker jobs, whether it be, automation of your payroll systems, which is very easily done now with the AI tools that we have, could be legal documentation review, and that's going to have a significant white collar job impact. So how do we address some of these mitigation strategies? How do we mitigate some of these unique challenges? Well, the first thing is we got to kind of tackle it head on. And we need to implement HR policies that are going to support AI use. In the very beginning, there was this thought that folks and even schools and others would ban AI and not allow its use inside their organization. that's pretty much gone away. So let's integrate that into our HR policies, into our job descriptions, into our performance reviews. I've talked to a couple of CEOs recently who are making AI use mandatory in their companies. Just even if it's just for personal productivity, they're making people use it and putting it in performance reviews. To address some of that pace, an AI literacy program. I'm fairly involved in AI, and it's still very difficult for me to keep up with everything. So people who are working a full-time job, trying to do their regular work, how do we get them up to speed on AI? Implement things like buddy systems. Some companies are taking a half a day for AI experimentation, trying to drive productivity. Things like AI help desks, Slack channels, forums for communicating. And then, of course, how do we deal with that white-collar impact of AI? Invest in upskilling. Obviously, we do that with every technology implementation, but certainly in my career, I've seen that we haven't done that enough in traditional technologies. And then the concept that human plus AI is greater than an AI and is greater than a human. So it's not, the common saying right now is it's not going to be an AI that takes your job. It's going to be a person using AI that's going to take your job. Leveraging real life examples to show people how to use the tools, pilots along with experimentation. And then just like with anything else, good leadership, we need to be transparent with the AI impacts and understanding that increased productivity may drive changes in our work organizational structure. So we need to be transparent about that. So just in conclusion, generative AI has tremendous potential to drive productivity. If any of you have used any AI tools just for your personal productivity, whether it's answering emails automatically, summarizing documents, training yourself, you already know the possibility of productivity. However, as manufacturers and organizations, we need to be aware of the unique challenges and risks that it brings over those traditional technology implementations that aren't generating information, data, and decision making like other tools. I'm all set, Phaedra. Turn it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, all of the presenters. There was so much rich and great content that was presented here. And so therefore, I'm going to further open the floor for questions. We have a couple that have come in throughout the presentation, but for those that are still on this call, we certainly welcome any and all questions. Just push the little orange button for questioning and type in your questions into there, and we'll receive those. But I'm going to kick things off, and this is going to be a question for you, Colin. One of the questions that came in is, what SaaS benefits features are CPG customers most excited about? What considerations are customers thinking about when deciding SaaS versus on-premise? So Colin, that was
hold on here. Sorry about that. Ease of implementation. A lot of our SaaS customers are looking at it. They don't have a lot of infrastructure already built into their plants. They don't want to make a huge investment in hardware and networking and all the equipment you need in order to run an on-premise application. They're looking to go a lot quicker than that. So the SaaS methodology is a lot more attractive to them because we can bring it up a lot quicker for a lot less cost, and they don't have a huge investment up front. And we find a lot of our CPG companies are very interested in that.
Great, thank you. Mary, if you're still around, I have a question that has come in that I think maybe you can start off with, and then maybe we can follow up with Colin and or Scott on this one. When you talked about data and how much data is consumed, how much data is made and all that good stuff, how would you find being able to leverage that data to help optimize utilities usage, or do you have thoughts on that?
Oh, yes, plenty, because that also within a factory has some of the other implications of just a different team that's working on it. So it's data available to them, and then there's a crossover of, so how much, per machine or how much energy are each of my machines actually utilizing. So yeah, there is definitely not only from the productivities that you can get from optimizing a full line of a product being made, but also, how much energy are you consuming at the same time? We definitely have some use cases directly related to metering, smart metering, and how we can better utilize those to help plants and control those individual costs.
Great, thank you. And then I guess, Scott, from your side, how do organizations help, or how can organizations transform to leveraging this data to optimize? So some thoughts on organizational transformation to leveraging this data.
In terms of utilities or data across the board?
In terms of utilities, still on the utilities question.
Well, I think there's probably a couple of components there. I mean, people need to be aware of the energy usage and, take mitigation strategies, turn things off, et cetera, just like your home. And to me, it's just an example of change management and making sure you're communicating to your team energy uses, high energy times and requirements, and then making sure you talk about that and hold people accountable.
Great, thank you. Next question. I think maybe Colin will have you kick this one off as well. What are some, and you talked about this a little bit, but maybe I guess hone in a little bit more on this one. Some of the risk factors, for moving to the cloud versus on-premise. I think you touched on this, but maybe dive in a little bit more on that question. I think, that's a concern.
There's two big risk factors for running things in the cloud. Number one, it is remote to your facility. So we do have to worry about the network connectivity. We have to worry about what kind of latency we might have to the applications. So you have to make sure that we can connect to those applications since they're in the cloud and not on premise. But you have to do that anyway, because most companies will run a centralized data server from their corporate headquarters out to the plants anyway. So you have to worry about your network. The second thing you need to take a clear look at when it comes to running things on-prem, some data will have to be run and stored locally. You will probably have some type of requirement for local functionality based on safety and product safety or machinery safety. Plus, you want to maintain some of that data locally. So you have to understand or think about your hybrid approach when it comes to running manufacturing on the cloud. Those are the two big ones you need to be worried about.
Great, thank you. And then maybe I'll turn it over to Mary if you want to have any follow-ups in terms of how AWS or the solution via AWS helps or supports or helps overcome. If you have any thoughts on that, or maybe take a different angle even on just moving to the cloud.
Yeah, and it's, some people might think that this is heresy, but you don't move things to the cloud just for the sake of moving things to the cloud. We do this so that we can optimize our business, make better decisions, and, make our companies much more productive and profitable. So we first take a look at, so it's with our high availability and scale, we're not as concerned about the risk in terms of things continuing operation. I mean, we have full fulfillment center operations that depend on the cloud, so we feel very secure there. However, what we always do with any one of our migration strategies is just that. We have to identify what is your roadmap. What are the mission critical things that are going to help optimize your business? And don't move them for the sake of moving them, but let's question, what, how, and why, and over what period of time does that need to happen? So we definitely want to make sure that you're doing things for the right reasons and not for the sake of.
Great, thanks, Mary. And you hit on something that I think Scott can then further elaborate on. Developing the strategies. Like, what is your strategy, right? And so I think from an organizational standpoint, then Scott, how do you think through as people are thinking about risk factors and moving to the cloud? What are some things to think about from an organization standpoint? Strategies being one. That was just mentioned. What else are some things that people can consider or think through from a risk factor standpoint?
I think, again, in traditional technologies, it's all about upskilling people, making sure they have the tools and the training to be able to take advantage of what the use case is trying to deliver. That's where training, change management, leadership from the top, all of those things are required to actually get the value out of whatever traditional technology you're implementing. The number of times that I've in my career at least experienced an application, or ERPs always get a kind of a bad name, but any of these large packages, and then people aren't trained, and you find out that the implementation or required to use it, and the implementation kind of falls flat on its face because the people aren't on board yet or not trained. So to me, that's the organizational piece right there.
Yeah, no, thank you. That makes sense. And with that, I don't see any additional questions in the chat. So I think we'll close that piece down. Any final thoughts from the three of you? Let's start off with Colin. Any final thoughts from your end?
No, I just want to thank everybody for giving us a chance to talk and present what we have here. It's been a great meeting.
Great. Mary, any final thoughts from your side?
Yeah, as I said, very appreciative of the time and everybody who came online today. It's great partnering with GE to have these meaningful conversations and what some of our clients can do and what to think about going forward as they're modernizing their data strategies.
Love it. Scott?
Yep, same. Thanks everybody for joining. I think one thing I would comment on is I continue to be a little surprised at how few folks in our world of CPG manufacturing are getting involved in artificial intelligence. And I think it's a must at this point. So would encourage everybody. There's tons of classes online for free. Obviously a lot of newsletters, get information on Twitter and start using it because it's an amazing tool.
Awesome. Well, thank you again to our presenters. We really appreciate it. I hope the audience found value in this. As a reminder, we will be able to send out the presentation and recording of this session. So if there's a note that you didn't quite capture or something on a screen that you didn't quite catch, no need to rush. We will be sending this out shortly. And again, thank you for presenters and thank you for the attendees. We hope this was valuable for you. With that, we will end this broadcast. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Sure.